Hello, everybody. First, I would like to thank the organizers for this very treasured solidarity space. My name is مريم الجعجع. I'm the General Manager of the Arab Group for the Protection of Nature. We're a people's organization focused on enhancing community sovereignty over food and natural resources, particularly in areas impacted by conflict and occupation. And we are also part of the farmers' constituency. I've been asked to be diplomatic in my speech. Trust that I am being extremely diplomatic in what I will describe to you now. 76 years of settler colonialism, brutal military occupation, and apartheid had barred Palestinians from their natural resources, lands, water, and basic human rights and human dignity. Ethnic cleansing has been the ambition, commencing with the complete destruction of 530 villages in 1948 and persisting to the current genocide in Gaza, attempting to uproot a population from the earth that they nurtured and had embraced them for thousands of years. Prior to this war, Palestinians had lost 85% of their ancestral water and land resources. They had their ecosystems destroyed through settlement expansion, dumping of chemical and hazardous waste. Their trees, many of them thousands of years old, were systematically uprooted and replaced with foreign invasive species. Prior to the war, and for 17 years, Israel had turned Gaza into a huge concentration camp, restricting mobility and access to seawater, food, and inputs of production, as well as resource conservation and climate adaptation supplies. As Doug Wiglis, consultant to an Israeli prime minister at that time, has said, we have to make them much thinner, but not too enough to die from hunger. The idea is to put the Palestinians on a diet, but not to make them die of hunger. Gaza was subjected to many wars in the past, but since the last invasion that started in October, it stands out as unprecedented in the scale of human loss and environmental destruction. Until the beginning of January, Israel has dropped over 65,000 tons of explosives on Gaza's densely populated areas and rural lands, yielding over 3 times the firepower of Hiroshima. Gaza has become a graveyard for children, as described by the UN Secretary General. Indeed, 37,000 people have lost their lives, but more than 18,000 are children, many of which have been sniped in their streets and in their homes. This figure fails to capture the rising death toll that comes from a severe shortage of food, contaminated water, and the lack of medicine. The use of conventional and incendiary weapons that are now being marketed as battle-proven or tested has systematically destroyed every aspect of Gaza's environment, ecosystems, and natural resources, from water and soil pollution to toxic-filled air from burning infrastructure and bodies. Plant and animal life was also deliberately targeted by systematic bombing, bulldozing, and even sniping. Water treatment plants and solar energies were among the first targets of this war. The planet-warming emissions generated during the first 2 months of this war in Gaza were greater than the annual carbon footprint of more than 20 of the world's most climate-vulnerable nations. A siege on food and water and the humanitarian aid have left over 1 million in famine, 500,000 in famine, with high risk of death. But although 9 out of 10 people in Gaza do not eat every day, all the population of Gaza is now in an acute situation of food insecurity. 90% of children and 95% of pregnant and lactating women experience food poverty. Palestinians are resorting to eating tree leaves, grass, animal fodder, and lately they've been mixing it with soil. Women are unable to breastfeed due to malnutrition, and babies, the lucky ones, are being fed formula with water contaminated by sewage, toxins, and seawater. And while all our eyes are on Gaza, the occupation through its settlers and military has escalated the rate of environmental and agricultural destruction in the West Bank, including the burning of orchards, the harvest and the buildings, and killing of cattle and destroying water infrastructure. So have we remained silent as civil society? Of course not. We've been building campaigns and movements across the region and internationally. In our organization, we continue to expose environmental harms of the conflict, and we continue our mandate of replanting the trees of Palestine. Israel has uprooted over 3 million trees since the year 2000. Many of them are thousands of years old, and this year we mark our 3rd million trees being planted in Palestine. Under the slogan, "They uproot one, we plant 10." And also, we've planted 500,000 trees in Gaza, and we've committed ourselves to replanting each and every tree if we get the capacity once this war stops. We invite you to join us in calling for an immediate ceasefire and stopping of this genocide and ecocide, to lift the siege and address the environmental impacts through scientific assessments, reparation, rehabilitation of the resulting environmental, health, and humanitarian aspects. We want to also ask you, as civil society and major groups, to always call things as they are. The situation in Palestine is not a regular conflict. It's a situation of occupation and a situation of settler colonialism. And the term occupation is an internationally recognized term. In fact, the UN calls us the occupied Palestinian territories. So we would really like to emphasize that. We also call on you to participate. On Monday, we've called for a silent move for all communities that are impacted by war and occupation. We're still waiting for the approval, but we will let you know if we get it. Lastly, many international civil society organizations have been organizing a lot of advocacy campaigns, ceasefire calls, campaigns to halt weapon sales and energy. So if anybody is interested in any of these campaigns, please do let me know. Let us prove that we value human life equally. Thank you so much for this opportunity.